dawn in a farming village. The first pale light of dawn glimmers over a small feudal Japanese village. A rooster's crow echoes faintly through the morning mist, which clings to the thatched roofs of humble farmhouses. In one such home, a simple wooden structure with a dirt-floored kitchen and tatami mats for living and sleeping, a family stirs awake to begin their day. The air is cool and still. From outside comes the soft whisper of wind through tall bamboo groves and the distant babble of a stream. Nature's gentle chorus greeting the new day. Inside the dim interior, the household's hearth flickers to life. The hearth itself is an irori, a square sunken fire pit in the floor filled with fine ash, having been kept aglow through the night by buried embers. It only needs a gentle stir and a few pieces of kindling to awaken the flames. Orange firelight crackles softly, illuminating the dark one-room home. Above the hearth hangs a tiny kamidana, a household Shinto altar, set on a beam. On it, small offerings of rice and salt appease the kitchen kami, the hearth deity, honoring the flame and praying for protection from accidental fires. The flicker of the fire dances on the wooden walls as the cast iron kettle suspended over the fire begins to simmer. Already filled with water drawn from the well the night before, the kettle now issues a low, soft bubbling. One of the few sounds in the quiet dawn. The mother of the family moves calmly in the half-light, tending to the morning meal. She crouches by the hearth, her silhouette bowed in concentration. In a clay pot, she mixes grains of barley and millet with a handful of precious white rice. White rice is a luxury for peasants. Much of their rice crop must be paid as tax to their lord. So they often eat the lesser grains like barley and millet in daily meals. By combining these grains, she makes a nourishing porridge called katameshi, a staple for farming folk. She adds water and places the pot over the flame, letting it simmer slowly. A mild nutty aroma rises as the barley and millet cook, reassuring and familiar. Next to the grain porridge, a smaller pot is set up to prepare miso soup. From a ceramic jar, the father takes a scoop of fermented soybean paste, miso, a fragrant, savory paste that will form the base of the soup. In the early morning quiet, he ladles a bit of yesterday's remaining dashi broth, made from dried kelp and tiny fish, into the pot and brings it to a boil over the coals. Then he stirs in the brown miso paste. The rich, comforting scent of miso, full of umami, blends into the air. This fermented soybean soup provides warmth and hearty flavor. A traditional way to start the day. A few thin slices of daikon radish and some wild greens gathered from the hills the day before are added to the soup, giving texture and freshness. Such ingredients are simple and seasonal, whatever the family has on hand or can forage. In this era, meat is rarely eaten in the village. Buddhist influence and practical necessity mean the soup contains no meat, only vegetables and maybe a bit of seaweed or a cracked egg if available. Today, a handful of dried seaweed is sprinkled in, softening in the steaming broth. As the miso soup gently simmers, the mother reaches into a wooden tub that sits cool in a shaded corner of the kitchen. Lifting its lid releases a faint sour salty fragrance. Inside are sukemono, pickled vegetables that have been fermenting for weeks. She selects a small dish of pickled turnip and cucumbers, preserved in brine and rice bran. Their colors muted olive and pale yellow. Pickles are an essential accompaniment to every meal, providing a crisp tangy bite to contrast the mild grain and soup. With practiced hands, she arranges a few slices in a little glazed dish. Now the simple breakfast is ready, a pot of hot barley millet porridge, a steaming miso soup, and a side of pickled vegetables. The family gathers on the floor around the hearth. They sit on flat woven straw cushions placed upon the tatami, in the gentle orange glow of the coals. Their faces are peaceful and still waking. The father, mother, an elderly grandmother, and a small boy all settle into their places. In many poor homes like this, people traditionally eat only 2 meals a day, one around noon and one in the evening. But on this farm, work will start early, before the sun fully rises. So the family takes a modest dawn meal to fuel their labor. Before eating, they all pause and bow their heads slightly. In unison, they press their palms together and whisper "Itadakimos," meaning "I humbly receive." It is customary in Japan to say this phrase before a meal as an expression of gratitude for all who helped provide the food. Their voices are soft and respectful in the morning hush. This small ritual sets a mindful tone. Only after giving thanks do they lift their chopsticks. Each person has a personal lacquered wooden bowl for rice and another for soup. The little boys' bowls are plain wood. A bit worn at the edges, the adults use simple black bowls that have been in the family for years. The father carefully ladles the warm porridge into everyone's rice bowl. It glistens, soft and filling. Small puffs of steam wafting upward. The mother follows, pouring hot miso soup into their soup bowls, each containing pieces of daikon and seaweed floating in the fragrant broth. She hands these bowls out with 2 hands, a gesture of respect and care. They begin to eat quietly. In the stillness, one can hear the soft sounds of breakfast, the clack of chopsticks against bowl, the gentle slurp as the grandmother brings her soup bowl to her lips to drink directly from it. It is acceptable to lift one's small bowl right up to the mouth to avoid spilling. So she cradles the bowl in both hands and sips the miso broth. The hot soup warms her aged body from within. Across from her, the child picks up a chunk of tender radish from his soup with his chopsticks, blowing on it lightly before eating. A faint smile crosses the mother's face as she watches him. She quietly reminds him to eat every grain of his porridge, not to waste even a single morsel. Children are taught from a young age to cherish their food and finish every last grain of rice. In this way, they show respect for the hard work that went into growing it. The pickles add a pleasant crunch between bites of soft rice. The father takes a slice of pickled turnip with his chopsticks, nibbling it thoughtfully. Its salty sour taste accentuates the mild sweetness of the grain porridge. He feels the satisfying warmth of the meal spreading through him. Outside, the sky grows lighter, and a few sparrows chirp under the eaves. The village around them is slowly coming to life. But inside their home, the family remains in a cocoon of calm, focused on the meal. They do not speak much while eating, only a few murmured offers to pass more pickles or to refill someone's bowl. In Japanese dining etiquette, meals are often eaten in appreciative quiet. Talking excessively during meals is not customary, as people concentrate on the flavors and nourishment before them. So the family eats in companionable silence. The crackle of the fire and the occasional contented sigh are the main sounds that accompany their breakfast. When each of them has finished their bowls of porridge and drained the last drop of soup, they again put their hands together and bow their heads. Gokaizo-sama deshita, they say gratefully, which means it was a feast, a way to thank the cook and the spirits of the food. Even for this simple fare, they express thanks, acknowledging the efforts of the mother who prepared it and the blessing of having food. In this era of subsistence farming, a full stomach cannot be taken for granted. Gently, they place the lids back onto the pots and bowls, tidying up the dishes. The morning meal comes to a close. The boy wipes his mouth with his sleeve and the grandmother pours a bit of hot water from the kettle into each person's teacup. This is a common practice, drinking plain hot water or weak barley tea after the meal to cleanse the palate and ensure safe hydration. They sip the warm water slowly, feeling the heat travel down to their bellies. At last, dawn sunlight begins to filter through the paper screen window, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air. The day's work beckons. The father rises to fetch his hoe and straw hat. The mother and grandmother begin to pack a small bundle of food for later, and the little boy runs out to check on the family's chickens. But for a few moments more, the quiet satisfaction of the morning meal lingers in the air. The hearth fire crackles gently as if in contentment. In this peaceful village house, nourished by rice, miso, and humble pickles, the family is ready to meet the new day. Grounded by the rhythms of tradition and gratitude, midday in the market town, the sun climbs high overhead, bathing the town in a gentle warmth. It is midday in a bustling market town. Perhaps Edo, the shogun's capital, where narrow streets are lined with wooden merchant shops and workshops. Unlike the tranquil farming village, here the atmosphere is quietly lively. Shopkeepers and artisans have been busy since morning selling their wares. And now a natural pause in the day arrives. A soft hum of activity continues, the distant wheel of a handcart creaks. And a vendor's wooden chimes clack softly as he walks the street, advertising steamed sweet potatoes for sale. The smell of charcoal grills and simmering broth drifts on the noontime breeze. In this era, people in towns typically eat 3 meals a day instead of the 2 standard in the countryside. As the clock of the stomach strikes noon, merchants and apprentices alike turn their thoughts toward lunch, under the eaves of a shop selling paper lanterns. A few workers gather to enjoy a quick bite. They unfurl furoshiki cloth bundles to reveal simple lunches prepared at home, molded onigiri rice balls wrapped in nori seaweed. One young apprentice bites into his rice ball and finds a surprise in the center, a pickled plum. Umeboshi. Its salty sour tang spreading across the plain white rice. Umeboshi are beloved for their sharp flavor and natural preservative qualities, tucked into a rice ball. The plum keeps it fresh in the late summer heat. He smiles at the familiar taste. Grateful for this small treat from his mother's kitchen, across the road, a soba noodle vendor has set up a portable stall under the shade of a willow tree. The vendor ladles buckwheat noodles into shallow bowls and pours over a hot broth rich with dark soy sauce and katsuobushi, dried bonito flakes. A few townspeople stand or perch on high stools, quickly slurping the steaming noodles. Soba has become a favorite fast food in Edo ever since enterprising cooks started serving it in this convenient form after the Great Fire of Miyake decades ago. The broth's savory aroma, a blend of soy and fish stock, wafts through the air. Eating quickly, a messenger in a hurry tips up his bowl to drink the last of the soup, murmuring his satisfaction. In the quiet rhythm of the city, this soba stand provides a moment of rest and nourishment before everyone returns to work. Further down the street, other tempting snacks await. At one corner, a stall sells tempura, slices of eggplant, strips of burdock root, and small shrimp dipped in a light batter and fried to crispy gold. The cook uses plenty of hot oil bubbling in an iron cauldron, a new luxury made possible as oil production increased during the Edo period. With each batch, he lifts out the tempura pieces and drains them on paper, their delicate coating glistening. A curious child stands on tiptoe to watch, drawn by the mouth-watering scent. In the countryside, oil for frying is scarce and most foods are boiled or grilled. But here in the city, the availability of inexpensive vegetable oil has given rise to delights like tempura. Customers buy skewers of these hot fried morsels wrapped in paper, savoring the satisfying crunch. Despite its foreign origins, inspired by a Portuguese recipe, tempura has become thoroughly Japanese and popular with commoners who relish a bit of crispy indulgence. Nearby, an older merchant is closing his shop for a short break. He slides shut the wooden panels of his storefront that normally display fine silk fabrics. Edo's gastronomic culture is flourishing. Food is no longer just sustenance but a source of pleasure. Indeed, enthusiastic gourmets have begun influencing food culture. Cookbooks, side dish rankings, and a seasonal food calendar known as the Hatsumono calendar are being printed, allowing people to track the peak of seasonal ingredients. Still, for this hard-working merchant and his wife, lunch today is simple and comforting rather than extravagant. Inside the dim coolness of his shop's back room, he settles onto a tatami mat for his midday meal. His wife brings out a tray with lacquered dishes, a home-cooked lunch for two. On the tray is a bowl of freshly steamed white rice, perfectly pearly and soft. For this merchant's family, unlike for the village peasants, white rice can be enjoyed every day. Polished white rice is a sign of their urban prosperity. The farmers who grow it rarely get to eat their own harvest, being urged instead to consume barley or millet. The The merchant pairs his rice with a bowl of miso soup that his wife made that morning, brimming with silken tofu and chopped green onion. The soup's aroma of fermented miso and scallions fills the small room. Comforting in its familiarity, there are a couple of side dishes as well. One is a small plate of grilled fish, a fillet of salt-cured mackerel lightly brushed with soy sauce and mirin as it's sizzled over charcoal. Fish is plentiful in this coastal city. And even though strict Buddhist teachings discourage meat, seafood remains a staple part of the diet for all classes. The tender fish flakes apart easily between the chopsticks, carrying a savory, smoky taste of the sea. Another side dish is a handful of tsukemono pickles. No meal would be complete without them. Today it's tart pickled eggplant and a few slices of bright yellow takuan, pickled daikon radish, which add crunch and a tangy contrast to the rich fish and warm rice. The merchant and his wife kneel across from each other on flat cushions. They bow their heads briefly, murmuring itodakimos, giving thanks before they eat, as is their habit even when it's just the two of them. Sunlight filters through the lattice window, falling in delicate patterns on the tatami. For a few minutes, the couple eats in contented silence. In the background comes the distant clatter of a hyoshigi, wooden clappers, as another vendor walks by, perhaps selling roasted chestnuts or bean cakes. But the sound is muffled and drowsy in the summer afternoon. Here in the back room, there is tranquility, only the faint rustle of clothing and the soft pick-up and set down of bowls as they dine. Following good manners, they refrain from chatter, appreciating the meal quietly. After they finish the main courses, the merchant pours 2 small cups of warm sake from a ceramic flask. The milky white rice wine is a gentle indulgence to break up the day. Clasping the cup in both hands, he offers one to his wife respectfully. It is custom that one does not pour one's own drink, each pours for the other as a sign of courtesy. They sip the sake slowly. It has a mellow, calming effect, its subtle sweetness bringing a flush of ease to their cheeks. Outside, the buzz of the town seems to recede for a moment as they enjoy this quiet reprieve together. Lunch concludes with a tiny sweet. The merchant's wife has saved a couple of wagashi confections purchased from a nearby sweet shop, soft rice dumplings coated in smooth red bean paste. She serves each on a little ceramic plate alongside a cup of green tea. The tea is a simple sencha, not the powdered matcha of a formal ceremony, but its grassy flavor is refreshing. As they nibble the sweets, the slight bitterness of the tea balances the sugar, cleansing the palate. Such treats were once luxuries, but in bustling Edo the art of confectionery has flourished, and even common townsfolk occasionally enjoy seasonal sweets with their tea. Their meal complete, the couple voices a satisfied Gokaizo-sama deshitsu, thanking each other and the household gods for the food. The merchant's wife stacks the empty dishes neatly, covering the rice pot and snuffing the small lantern that had been flickering in the corner. In the calm that follows, one can hear cicadas lazily buzzing in the trees outside and the distant laugh of children playing after their noon meal. The merchant slides open the shop panels again, letting in bright light and the warm scent of the street. Revitalized by their lunch, he and his wife prepare to resume their work. In this genteel rhythm of the town, even a brief midday meal is a moment of grace, a time to pause, enjoy nourishment, and appreciate the balance of flavors and fortunes that life in the city affords. Afternoon tea in the samurai's garden. As the afternoon sun begins its slow descent, a golden tranquility settles over the samurai's residence. In the rear garden of a modest samurai estate, dappled light filters through the leaves of maple and pine. The day's earlier bustle has quieted, only the soft chirping of cicadas and the whisper of a breeze in the bamboo grove break the silence. Here, away from the dusty streets, a stone path leads toward a small tea house nestled among the greenery. The samurai who owns this home has invited a close friend for a simple tea ceremony, a practice that is both art and meditation, highly cherished in their warrior culture. The guest, a fellow samurai, walks slowly along stepping stones, tobiishi, that wind through a mossy garden ground. Each step is deliberate, helping to clear the mind. He pauses at a low stone basin near the tea hut's entrance. Bending down, he uses a bamboo ladle to pour cool water over his hands and to rinse his mouth, a symbolic cleansing before entering the sacred space of the tea room. The water's touch is refreshing, and he straightens with a calm exhale. A rustic stone lantern stands nearby, unlit in the daytime but lending a timeless atmosphere to the shaded garden. The guest appreciates the stillness, the faint scent of damp moss and pine needles, the gentle tonk of a bamboo water fountain tipping in the distance, the trickle of water as it spills and then resets. To enter the tea house, the guest must bow and pass through a small low doorway. This little entrance, called an iriguchi, forces all who enter, samurai lords and commoners alike, to humble themselves, crouching as equals, carrying nothing but an open mind. The guest steps inside. The tea room is tiny, just a few tatami mats in size, and very simple. The walls are earth and plaster, a warm tea-stained ochre. Light comes in diffused from a single shoji window, suffusing the room with a gentle glow. In the alcove, tokonoma, on one wall hangs a scroll of elegant calligraphy. Today it displays a single Zen phrase brushed in bold black ink, Wakei Jaku, which means harmony, respect, purity, tranquility. These are the guiding principles of the way of tea. Below the scroll, a simple arrangement of seasonal wildflowers in a narrow bamboo vase brings a touch of nature indoors. A single pale purple iris, just plucked from the garden pond, stands gracefully, a quiet nod to summer's height. The host, our samurai, is already inside, seated in Caesar, kneeling, on the tatami, awaiting his guest. He wears a simple cotton kimono, having set aside his swords before entering this peaceful space. The guest kneels opposite him with a respectful bow. In the cool hush of the tea room, time seems to slow to a different rhythm. Every movement and object here is deliberate and revered. In one corner, a small charcoal fire heats a kettle set into the floor hearth. The iron kettle's lid trembles ever so slightly as steam builds within. Presently, a soft sound begins, a faint, rhythmic sh that rises and falls. The guest closes his eyes for a moment, listening to this subtle music. Tea masters have a name for it, matsukaze. The wind in the pines, because the kettle's gentle hiss evokes the sound of a breeze whispering through pine branches. The longer he listens, the more it sounds like distant wind in treetops. An ebb and flow that calms the heart, between host and guest. A few elegant tea utensils are arranged with precision on the tatami. There is a small ceramic tea caddy holding finely ground matcha green tea powder. Its glaze a muted mossy green. Beside it lies a delicate bamboo scoop, choshaku, and a folded silk cloth. A tea bowl, shawan, rests nearby, an object of beauty in its own quiet way. It is an old raku-ware bowl, hand-molded and slightly asymmetrical, with an earthy red-brown glaze that bears subtle dark speckles. Such imperfections are cherished as wabi-sabi, reflecting beauty in the imperfect and aged. The guest admires the bowl silently, noting how the afternoon light catches a thin golden line on its rim, evidence of a crack long ago, repaired with lacquer mixed with gold in the art of kintsugi. The repair, glinting softly, has become part of the bowl's story. The host performs a respectful bow to his guest and begins the temi, the formal sequence of actions to prepare the tea. Every gesture is unhurried, almost like a slow dance. First, he takes a fine purple silk cloth, fukusa, and ritually purifies the tea container and scoop with precise, mindful movements. The soft cloth swishes with a whisper against the lacquer and bamboo. Next, using iron tongs, he lifts a tiny lid from the iron kettle. A puff of steam escapes into the room. Carefully, he scoops some hot water with a long-handled bamboo ladle, hishaku, and pours a little into the tea bowl to warm it. The water swirls in the bowl, and the host gently rotates the bowl to let the heat touch all sides. He then discards the water into a waste jar. Each action is deliberate and calm, with no wasted motion. Now comes the tea itself. The host opens the tea caddy, revealing the vibrant green matcha powder inside. Using the bamboo scoop, he measures out 1, 2, then 3 scoops of the fine powder into the empty tea bowl. The matcha is a bright spring green, smelling of fresh grass. With the scoop laid aside, the host ladles a portion of hot water from the kettle into the bowl. The water meets the powder with a silent bloom of emerald, cradling the bowl in one hand. The host then takes up a bamboo whisk, chasin, carved from a single piece of bamboo split into dozens of flexible bristles. He brings the whisk to the bowl and begins to whisk briskly, wrist moving in a quick back and forth motion. The only sounds are a gentle frothing and the light tap of bamboo on ceramic. As he whisks, the mixture turns a rich, velvety green. A fine foam with tiny bubbles forms on the surface. The aroma of young tea leaves rising softly. The guest inhales the scent. It is fresh and grassy, with a hint of sweetness beneath the bitterness. A fragrance both awakening and soothing. In a matter of moments, the host has prepared a bowl of koika, thick green tea. He lifts the whisk out. Its tines coated with green, and inspects the consistency of the tea. Satisfied, he wipes the whisk and sets it aside. Holding the bowl with both hands, he turns it slightly so that the front, often the most decorated side, faces him. This gesture ensures the best side of the bowl is presented to the guest. He then places the bowl gently in front of his guest. The guest bows deeply and responds with a polite phrase of gratitude. He then lifts the bowl with both hands, appreciating its weight and warmth. The chawan is warm to the touch, heated by the water and tea it holds. The guest admires for a moment the contrast of the vivid green foam against the rustic clay. Bringing the bowl to his lips, he takes a slow, deliberate sip. The tea is thick and strong, coating his tongue with a bold bittersweet flavor. He pauses, letting the taste spread. This matcha has an intensity that gradually mellows to a sweet, grassy aftertaste. He takes another sip, and another, finishing the bowl in 3 gulps as etiquette dictates. A deep warmth radiates through him. The caffeine and the spirit of the tea provide a calm alertness. When he has drained the last drop, the guest lowers the bowl and admires it once more. In tea etiquette, it is polite to examine the craftsmanship of the bowl as a sign of respect. Oshiga no chawan. Such a beautiful bowl, he says softly, praising the vessel. He then wipes the rim where he drank with a small paper napkin and sets the bowl down. Bowing, he places the bowl back in front of the host. The host bows in return, accepting it. The formal part of the ceremony is nearly over, but its effects linger in the heart. The host cleans the whisk and the scoop in the same mindful manner, rinsing and wiping them. Then finally cleanses the tea bowl. He sets the utensils aside neatly. To conclude, he brings out a small confection, a simple wagashi sweet, and offers it to his guest. It is a bite-sized ball of sweetened bean paste, artfully colored a pale green and shaped like a leaf bud to match the summer season. The guest takes it and pops it into his mouth. Its gentle sweetness softens the remaining bitterness on his palate. For a few minutes more, host and guest sit in the pleasant stillness of the tea room, allowing conversation to blossom naturally. They may exchange a few quiet words about the weather, or admire the calligraphy on the scroll. Perhaps the host mentions that the hanging scroll was brushed by his own tea teacher, or the guest comments on how refreshing the sound of the garden's breeze was during their gathering. These gentle observations heighten the shared appreciation of the moment. In this intimate setting, rank and titles are left outside. Both men feel simply human, two friends sharing tea. During the Edo period, participation in shono, the way of tea, has become an essential mark of culture for the samurai class. A pursuit that cultivates discipline and inner tranquility. Even powerful lords take time to study and practice tea, finding in its simplicity a counterbalance to the pressures of governance and duty. At length, The gathering comes to an end. The guest and host bow deeply to one another, expressing mutual gratitude. Kokaizo sama. Thanks for the treat. And senjutsu wa ozwa ni narimashita. Acknowledging the kindness of the hospitality, the guest departs first, carefully sliding open the low door and stepping out into the late afternoon sun. He pauses to appreciate the garden once more. The shadows of leaves have grown longer on the stepping stones, and the day's heat has gentled. Behind him, the host remains in the tea room for a moment, alone in the now empty space. He looks around at the quiet, sunlit room, the faint wisp of steam still rising from the kettle spout. He breathes deeply, feeling a profound sense of peace. Finally, the samurai host quenches the glowing charcoal and gathers his cherished tea bowl and utensils. He leaves the tea house and joins his friend in the garden. The two stroll slowly back toward the main house, their hearts light. The sky is turning shades of amber and pink as evening approaches. The tranquility of the tea ceremony has refreshed them both. As they part with a final bow and a promise to meet again, the samurai glances once more at his little tea hut nestled among the greenery. The gentle experience of the afternoon, the whispering kettle, the shared silence, stays with him as he moves into the evening. Like the lingering aftertaste of fine tea, evening feast in the castle, twilight descends gently over the feudal lord's castle. The sky in the west is painted with streaks of gold and rose, fading to deep blue overhead. Lanterns are being lit one by one along the covered walkways of the castle, their warm glow flickering against white plaster walls and dark wooden eaves. In the vast banquet hall, a quiet anticipation fills the air. Tonight, the daimyo, the local feudal lord, will dine with his close family and a few honored retainers. The room is spacious and adorned with restrained elegance. Delicately painted screens depicting cranes and pines stand against the walls. Tatami mats cover the floor, softening every footstep. In the center, low lacquered tables and individual tray tables, zen, have been arranged for each diner. Each setting holds an array of small dishes, artfully arranged. For this multi-course evening meal, the lord enters, and all present respectfully bow until he is seated at the head position. Furthest from the door in the place of honor, the kamiza. He wears a flowing silk kimono in shades of deep indigo. Though his status is high, his demeanor tonight is calm and unassuming. One by one, his wife, his eldest son, and two loyal samurai advisors take their places. Attendants in muted kimonos shuffle in on their knees to pour drinks and set down the first course. A soft rhythm of sliding doors is heard as servants close the shoji screens, cocooning the hall in privacy. The only sounds are the hushed rustle of clothing and the faint crackle of oil lamps. Through the gap of an open panel on one side of the room, the night garden is visible, silhouettes of maple trees and the glint of a koi pond under the rising moon. A cool dusk breeze wafts in, carrying the gentle chirr of crickets beginning their evening chorus outside. At a signal from the lord, a slight nod and the brief word itadakimos, the meal commences. Everyone present echoes the phrase softly. Then together they lift their chopsticks. It is custom that none of the guests starts eating until the lord has taken his first bite. Now they all begin. The atmosphere is one of refined tranquility. A few polite remarks are murmured as they sample the delicacies. But conversation is minimal and subdued. In such high company, it is considered courteous to dine quietly, so as to better appreciate the food and maintain decorum. Servants move soundlessly at the periphery, ready to attend to any need. But they remain as unobtrusive as shadows. Before the lord sits a beautiful lacquered tray holding several exquisite dishes. In one small porcelain bowl is a clear broth, a suimono, in which floats a crane-shaped slice of tofu and a sprig of mitsu herb. He lifts the lid, and a delicate aroma of yuzu citrus and dashi rises with the steam, bringing the bowl to his lips. He sips the broth directly and is pleased by its light, refined taste. On a separate plate lies an arrangement of sashimi, translucent slices of tai, sea bream, and maguro, tuna. presented on a bed of shredded daikon radish. A curl of green wasabi and a tiny saucer of soy sauce accompany it. The Lord picks up a piece of the sea bream with his chopsticks and dips just the fish edge into the soy sauce, careful not to drench the rice or overwhelm the subtle flavor, then eats it in one smooth bite. The freshness of the fish and the hint of soy and wasabi spread across his palate. Further along the tray are more seasonal delights. On one dish, a salt-grilled ayu, sweet fish, rests skewered as if swimming, with a sprig of fern on the side. Its skin has been charred crisp over coals and glistens with a light sprinkling of sea salt. A squeeze of carbosus citrus has been provided to drizzle over its tender flesh. In a lacquered bowl is a serving of simmered nimano, taro, carrot, and slices of tender duck breast cooked slowly in sweetened soy broth until they are imbued with rich flavor. There is also a vinegared salad of chrysanthemum petals and cucumbers, and a tiny porcelain cup holding silky chawanmushi, savory egg custard, with ginkgo nuts. Each dish is arranged like a work of art on its plate, garnished with a shiso leaf here, a twist of citrus peel there. The colors and shapes are in harmony, green, orange, golden, reflecting the early autumn season outside. A serving girl in a patterned kimono quietly approaches the Lord to pour sake into his cup. The sake is warm, poured from a ceramic tokgari decorated with a blue lattice design. The Lord inclines his head in thanks as she fills his small porcelain Sokazuki cup. In turn, he lifts the sake flask and nods to his highest-ranking guest, one of his senior retainers, offering to pour for him. The retainer humbly allows his lord to refill his cup, and they raise their drinks together. Kanpai, they whisper, softly toasting. The rice wine is smooth and fragrant, imparting a gentle glow in their chests. An attendant circulates to ensure every cup around the table remains filled, for it is considered bad manners for a host to neglect a guest's cup. One covered lacquer bowl holds the centerpiece of any Japanese meal, steamed rice. Snowy white and perfectly cooked. This rice is of the highest quality, each grain polished to a lustrous sheen. The Lord takes up the rice bowl, and as he does, he reflects briefly on simplicity. Even in this grand castle, he recalls how Tokugawa Ieyasu, the first shogun of their dynasty, often dined on humble fare like barley rice and miso soup by choice, believing that simplicity kept one strong and that luxury should be reserved for rare occasions. Following that philosophy, tonight's meal, though elegant, is measured. The Lord eats a few bites of the plain rice, appreciating its soft, lightly sweet taste. There is profound gratitude in simply enjoying good rice, a foundation of life and wealth in this era. Among the many dishes, one particularly hearty offering stands out, a small hot pot set at the table's corner, bubbling over a tiny charcoal flame. Inside is a wild boar stew, an uncommon delicacy. Chunks of boar meat have been simmered for hours with red miso, burdock root, and green onions. As the lid is lifted, a rich, earthy aroma wafts forth. The Lord serves a little to his bowl. The meat is tender and flavorful, its gaminess tempered by the sweet miso broth. Such game meats, boar, venison, even bear, are not typically eaten by common people both for religious reasons and scarcity. But the upper classes sometimes indulge in them for strength and variety. Around the table, a couple of appreciative murmurs rise as the guests taste this robust stew, savoring the warmth it provides on a cooling evening. Course follows course in leisurely succession. Small porcelain pickle dishes offer refreshing bites of salted plum and ginger between richer plates. There is a grilled course, a steamed course, a fried course, each in tiny portions to stimulate the palate without overfilling. The diners pace themselves, taking time to admire each presentation and to let the flavors linger. Between bites, they occasionally set down their chopsticks to rest and take in the ambience of the room. One wall has been opened completely to the outside, revealing the castle's inner garden now illuminated by stone lanterns. The bright mid-autumn moon floats above, its silver light rippling on the surface of the pond. A few pine crickets hidden in the grass chime in with a rhythmic song. As if nature itself provides background music for the dinner. The Lord looks out at the scene and smiles softly. This harmony of food, season, and setting is the very essence of traditional dining aesthetics. At length, the diners have eaten their fill. The final course is brought in, a simple clear soup with matsutake mushrooms and a squeeze of lime to cleanse the palate, followed by a light dessert of chilled persimmon slices and sweet azuki bean jelly. When these are finished, a closing cup of green tea is served. The tea is hot and astringent, washing away any remaining heaviness. Each person cradles their cup and sips slowly. Then, as one, they express thanks. Gokaizo-sama deshita. They say, voices low and sincere. That was a feast. They direct their gratitude to the Lord for hosting and to the invisible kitchen staff for their efforts. The Lord's wife adds a gracious compliment on the wonderful flavors. A note of her praise will surely reach the chefs and delight them. With the conclusion of the meal, formality begins to melt away. The guests relax, sitting back a little on their heels. One retainer mentions a poem he was reminded of by the moonlit view. Another quietly compliments the quality of the sake. The Lord responds kindly, a gentle contentment on his face. A soft laugh or two is shared among them. Servants have by now cleared the trays and dishes, moving as silently as ghosts. One brings a fresh pot of warm sake should anyone desire another sip, and another refills the teacups. But soon even these motions cease. One by one, the diners bow to the Lord and excuse themselves, retiring to their quarters with satisfied hearts. The Lord remains for a few moments after the others have gone. He slides off the tatami and steps out onto the wooden veranda that adjoins the dining hall. Drawn by the beauty of the night, at his gesture, an attendant quietly slides the shoji door open wider, revealing the full panorama of the garden. The night air is crisp and cool against his face. He can hear the gentle gurgle of a stream that feeds the pond and the soft rustling of leaves. In the sky, the moon shines with a serene brightness, outlining the castle rooftops in silver. Near the water's edge, a cluster of fireflies flit about, tiny lanterns floating above the reeds. The Lord takes a deep breath, inhaling the faint fragrance of night-blooming jasmine from the garden. All the stresses of governance, the petitions and paperwork of the day, feel far away in this moment. Finishing the last sip of tea in his cup, he lets out a contented sigh and steps back inside. Attendants waiting discreetly in the shadows now come forward. They bow and inform him that his bath has been drawn and his bed prepared. Nodding, the Lord makes his way through the quiet corridors of the castle. One by one, lamps are being extinguished as the hour grows late. In the donjon tower above, a night watchman strikes a bronze bell to signal that all is well and the castle gates are secure. The Lord slides open the door to his private chambers. Inside, a pair of thick futon quilts have been laid out on the tatami floor, with silk-covered pillows and a light cotton blanket for the autumn night. A single paper lantern glows in the corner, casting gentle shadows. The Lord shrugs off his formal kimono, changing into a simple sleeping robe. Before lying down, he opens a lattice window panel and gazes out one last time at the moon, whispering a short prayer of thanks for the day's fortune. He then leaves the window slightly ajar to invite a cool breeze for comfort. As the daimyo drifts into rest, across the land a peaceful hush has settled. In the little farming hamlet beyond the castle town, the peasant family from dawn has long since eaten their meager supper of millet gruel and wild herbs. Now they sleep soundly on woven mats near the embers of their hearth, the faint glow painting gentle shadows on their walls. Out in the fields, a few late cicadas drone and a peasant's dog lying by the door raises its head to sniff the calm night air. In their snug urban townhouse, the merchant and his wife have closed up shop and retired upstairs. They lie side by side on their futon, tired from the day's labors, listening to the distant roll of a taiko drum announcing the night's final hours. The samurai who hosted the tea gathering sits on his engawa porch with his wife. a light cotton yukata around his shoulders. Both quietly watching the moon. They say little, trading only smiles as they reflect on the day's serene moments. All across the realm, from the humblest dwelling to the grandest castle, families and individuals have supped and now find rest under the same sky. Midnight approaches, and the world of feudal Japan lies in slumber. The chorus of insects forms a gentle lullaby, punctuated by the occasional hoot of an owl perched on a castle watchtower. A breeze stirs the pampas grass on the hillsides and ripples the surface of the paddies, carrying the faint scent of ripe rice and wood smoke. In the castle, the last lanterns are dimmed by dutiful hands. The silence is deep and soothing, like a heavy quilt laid over the landscape. In the darkness, one can almost sense the contented sigh of an entire country at rest, under the watchful glow of the moon. The feudal Japanese countryside and towns sleep in harmony. The long day's journey through morning meals and evening feasts has come to a gentle end. Only the soft refrain of nature remains, the hush of the wind, the creak of old timber, the night's quiet breathing. These sounds weave a hypnotic tapestry that invites the listener to drift away as well. This has been a humble story of daily life, perhaps a boring history, yet within its ordinariness lies comfort and peace. As the images of miso soup, tea whisks, and paper dolls fade into the night, the mind can let go of all wakeful thoughts. The day in feudal Japan slips into memory, and in the stillness that follows, a deep and restful sleep finally blossoms. Night kitchens, quiet hearths, midnight deepens. In hidden corners of homes and inns, embers are coaxed into a faint glow so that tomorrow's meals will wake easily. In a farmer's cottage, the grandmother rises for a moment, pads softly across tatami, and checks the aurori. With a slender stick she loosens the ash, finds the red heart of warmth, and buries a few small coals so they will keep breathing till dawn. She pauses, listening to the house breathe, the creak of beams, the sigh of woven mats, then returns to her futon. In the merchant quarter, an apprentice baker lifts the cloth from a tub of rice dough. Its sweet, yeasty fragrance fills the dark room as he gently presses it back down. A promise of morning cakes. At a roadside inn on the Tokaido, the innkeeper's wife counts lacquer bowls by lamplight, running her thumb along each rim to feel for chips. She stacks them carefully, red on black, black on red, like quiet constellations on a low shelf. The world sleeps, yet kitchens murmur, water settling in clay jars, soy sauce thickening in barrels, pickles dreaming in their beds of rice bran. In an alley, a cat slips past a storehouse door where miso rests in huge cedar casks, lids weighed with river stones. The ferment whispers in its long, slow language, salt and bean, time and heat, and the cat pauses, whiskers trembling, as if it understands. Before dawn, the pickling cellar. Under a farmhouse lies a cool earthen cellar where sukemono are tucked away from summer's heat and winter's bite. Here, clay crocks line the wall like patient elders. One is filled with nukazuke, vegetables nested in warm, fragrant rice bran mixed with salt and a little sakeles. The mixture smells faintly like toasted nuts and rain-soaked straw. Each evening, the mother stirs it with a wooden paddle, folding the bran from the corners into the middle so that every cucumber, eggplant, or daikon will ferment evenly. Her hands learn the feel, if the bed is too dry, a splash of water, too sour, a pinch of fresh bran. Nearby, another crock holds kesazuke, fish and gourds sleeping in snowy sakeles, turning mild and mellow. A third is simple salt-pickled greens, emerald in brine, the color of deep forests. Pickling is a calendar written in jars. Spring radishes are quick to please. Early summer cucumbers are playful and crisp. Autumn eggplants relax into softness. And in winter, burdock and daikon wait patiently, dense and faithful. The cellar remembers every season and returns it to the table in small bright dishes. A daily punctuation in the gentle grammar of rice and soup. The potter's kiln, bowls that hold the moon, on the edge of town. A climbing kiln rests along a hillside. Its brick chambers like the segments of a giant, sleeping creature. Yesterday's firing has ended. And this morning the potters will open the arched mouths and peer into the cooled womb of flame. A young potter, sat still at the corners of his eyes, lifts a charwan with 2 hands. The bowl is deeper than a palm and shallower than a winter pond. Its skin shows the story of ash and heat, flecks where the flame kissed it, a blush where the fire lingered. He runs his thumb along a slight unevenness at the lip and smiles. In a grand palace far away, a flawless porcelain cup might be praised for perfection. But here, a tea bowl learns love through the way it remembers the earth. No two are the same, because no 2 mornings or fires or hands are the same. When such a bowl cradles Matthew and steam rises from its screen, the moon can be seen in the foam, the hills in the glaze, and a traveller's quiet in the curve that meets the mouth. Shojin supper, the monastery after dusk, in a mountain temple. Monks gather for an evening meal that is both nourishment and practice. The kitchen, called the Tenzo's Hall, is orderly and spare. A basket of tofu wrapped in cloth rests by a basin. Kelp soaks in clear water, releasing the mineral scent of sea and stone. The head cook moves with a gentleness that is not slow but unhurried, placing a clay pot on the fire, adding water, then kelp, waiting for the first shy bubbles before turning the flame down. He removes the kelp just before the broth complains and scatters a handful of dried bonito shavings to cloud the surface, then strains it to clarity again. Tonight's offering is shojin yori, rice, miso soup, simmered pumpkin with a thread of ginger, greens with sesame, and tofu braised in soy and sake. Nothing extravagant, everything complete. The bowls are set, and the monks sit in straight quiet lines. They bow their heads, palms together, and chant words of gratitude that turn hunger into humility. Chopsticks click like small, friendly crickets. No one reaches greedily, each bite is measured, chewed, honored, swallowed. A meal like this has no star but the season itself. The pumpkin tastes like low autumn light and fields turned after harvest. After the last grain of rice is lifted and the bowls rinsed with hot water that is then drunk, the monks give thanks again. And the washing up is as meticulous as the cooking. In the lantern's soft hush, even the ladle seems to breathe. A farmer's harvest supper. Back in the valley, the rice harvest has ended. Farmers gather in a row of houses. Doorways open. Laughter rolling out like welcome smoke. A long plank set on crates becomes a table. The offerings are modest and merry, grilled river fish salted and skewered. Skewers of tofu brushed with miso and sesame. Steamed taro cut into half moons and dipped in soy. Rice balls glossy with a hint of sweet mirin. There is pickled chrysanthemum leaf, its fragrance like cool evenings. And bowls of clear soup with mushrooms gathered from the cedar groves. Children dart in and out like sparrows. A neighbor unrolls a drum, another pours warm sake from a black tokari. Across the table, calloused hands lift cups and bow slightly to one another, kanpai barely above a whisper, as if not to startle the peace. Outside, the moon sits squarely above the paddies. Its reflection trembles in the water left in the furrows. And the frogs carry on an earnest conversation about everything and nothing at all. The meal ends with roasted chestnuts wrapped in paper and passed from hand to warm hand. Later, the old men lean back, knees popping like tiny twigs, and tell soft stories of seasons when the rain came early or the wind spared the grain. The road in, travelers at the low table, on the great highway that binds provinces to capital. An inn glows like a sheltered ember. Travelers arrive dusty and grateful, bowing through the doorway, setting down straw sandals. The innkeeper leads them to a room with a view of a small garden. A stone basin shining like a coin under the moon. Hot water is brought, the travelers wash hands and faces, their fatigue lifting in curls of steam. Supper is swift and soothing, a tray with rice, a bowl of miso soup with tofu and wakame, slices of daikon simmered in a soy sweet broth, a small salted fish, and 2 tiny pickles like commas on a porcelain plate. The travelers sit cross-legged and let silence season the meal. One murmurs itodokimos, and the word gathers the day's roads into a single, thankful breath. They eat unhurried, the hunger of miles answering the warmth of soup. The inn's paper walls glow. On the other side, someone hums a lullaby to a fretful child, and before long the child joins the hush. After the last sip of tea, futons are unrolled, and the weary find sleep as easily as falling through water. Etiquette as quiet poetry, dining customs, like gentle rules to a soft game, shape the calm. Bowls are lifted to the lips so that food travels upward, not downward. Chopsticks rest horizontally when they themselves need rest. One does not spear food, nor stand chopsticks like incense in a bowl of rice. Rice is plain on purpose, its whiteness invites the other flavors to speak. The pickles are not an afterthought, they are the turning pages of the meal. When pouring sake, you notice your neighbor's cup before your own. When receiving, you steady the saucer with the modesty of 2 hands. Words are few by design. There is itodokimos at the dawn of the meal and gokaizo sama deshita at its dusk. Gratitude bookending nourishment. If talk comes, it is anchored in weather and season, in crops and moonlight, in the way that tea today tastes a shade more like pine than yesterday. In every setting, from straw hut to castle hall, the manners make a soft music of respect. And that music is what the mind keeps long after taste dissolves. The soy sauce brewery, Rivers of Time. At the edge of town stands a complex of low buildings where cedar barrels rise taller than men. Inside, darkness smells of rain and flame, grain and patience. Koji mold works its invisible craft over steamed soybeans and roasted wheat. And months become flavor. Workers in tabby sandals walk the catwalks and stir the mash with long paddles. A steady rhythm of wood against wood. In summer, the liquid darkens and thickens. In winter, it rests and listens to frost. When finally drawn and pressed, the soy sauce falls into waiting casks as if the night itself were being poured, brown like old lacquer, glossy as river water at dusk. Cooks will lift a ladle of this liquid and a dish will be complete. Not shouted into brightness, but deepened, rounded, quieted. A few drops over tofu, a brush across fish, a whisper into broth. The brewery hands it to the world. And the world dances with 1,000 small nods. Seasons at the table. Spring arrives like a clean brush on pale paper. Bowls of tender bamboo shoots sharpened with sansho pepper. Young greens dressed with sesame. Tea turns brighter. Pickles lighter. Soups less brooding. Summer stretches lazy and long. Chilled tofu crowned with grated ginger. Cold noodles coiled like streams. Cucumbers thumped gently with salt and knocked against a cutting board until they shatter into crisp green shards. Or tormentas with the smell of smoke. Rice steamed with mushrooms and chestnuts. Slices of persimmon arranged like lanterns on porcelain. Winter closes the circle, hot pots bubbling with napa cabbage and tofu. A spoon of yuzu peel floating on miso soup like a sail in a warm bay. Each season changes the hand's instinct, more salt when heat makes one languid. More steam when cold tightens the chest. But the backbone stays, rice, soup, pickles, and a small side. A humble constellation that never confuses the traveler in the dark. The sword and the spoon, a samurai supper at home, in a modest samurai household far from courtly splendor. The evening is simple. Armor is hung. Swords laid on a low rack. The warrior washes his hands slowly, fingers remembering the reins of a horse, the grip of a bow, and then remembering nothing at all. His wife sets a tray, white rice, miso soup with daikon and burdock. Grilled mackerel brushed once with soy. A heap of blanched greens brightened with a dot of mustard. Pickles to mark the margins. He sits with a straight back that is not rigid but steady. He eats without hurry. Grateful for the fish's clean strength. for the bite of pickles that tighten the edges of thought, for the steam that fogs his vision and makes the day dissolve. The code that governs his sword governs his spoon, measure, clarity, restrained. After the last sip of tea, he bows to his wife, and she bows in return. An exchange of respect that tastes like the truest dessert, the quiet industry of dawn, morning again. The world is cool and damp, as if rinsed in a basin. A fishmonger lifts the shutters of his stall, scales flash like falling stars as he cleans a fresh catch. A tofu maker lifts a block from its mold, the tofu sighs and shines, quivering like moonlight in a pond. Steam rises from rice cookers, the first miso of the day sends up a fragrance that finds every doorway and gently knocks. An old woman sweeps her threshold, a young girl rinses cups, a farmer shoulders a yoke and walks toward the market with baskets that smell of earth. In kitchens across the land, breakfast assembles itself from habit and love, rice, miso, pickles, perhaps a sliver of grilled fish or a yolk-soft egg. Hands move where they have moved for years, bowls nest where they have nested for generations. The words spoken are few and round: good morning, welcome back, eat well, take care. Chopsticks click, tea pours. The day begins, the long table of years. If one could set one long table through centuries of feudal Japan, through villages and castle towns, inns and monasteries, it would be modest and beautiful in the same breath. Clay and wood, lacquer and bamboo, rice at the center like a quiet heart, soup breathing beside it, pickles bright as bells, small dishes like steps on a garden path. At one end, a farmer's boy lifting his bowl with two hands, ears still pink from washing; at the other, a lord tracing the rim of his cup while the moon arranges itself in the pond. Between them, 1,000 lives, none hurried, none idle, all stitched by the poise of dining that is also the poise of living. And if you sit there too, at that table stretched through time, you may find that your breath falls into the same cadence as the kettle's matsukaze, that your shoulders drop by a finger's width, that your thoughts loosen their knots. The rice is warm, the soup is kind, the pickles make a small, bright sound on the tongue and then step back into silence. The paper doors slide closed with their soft familiar whisper. Bamboo leans, wind considers the eaves and passes on. Somewhere a ladle tips and a stone basin answers. Bowls are washed, cloths are wrung, fires are banked. Night returns like a well-loved blanket. Gokaizo sama deshita. Thank you for the feast. Rest now. Sleep comes as it always does, on quiet feet. Through a paper door, carrying the scent of tea and cedar. Setting down a tray of dreams, rice white, miso warm, and edged with a single slice of moon. River morning, fishermen and seaweed, at first light. Fishing boats slip from a quiet inlet, their hulls creaking like old bamboo. Nets coil at the bow, oars dip without splash. The fishermen speak little, only soft signals. A cough, a nod at the wind. They know the channel's moods. The way the tide noses between sandbars and the way mullet turn when the sun lifts a blade of silver at the horizon. A kettle rattles on a small brazier, tea pours into chipped cups. Steam warms numb fingers. And the day opens, closer to shore. Two women wade waist deep. Their straw hats wide and low. They harvest wakame and kombu. The sea's dark banners swaying on the rocks. The seaweed is slick and cool, tasting of storm and stone. They rinse it in clear surf and lay it on woven mats to dry. The sheets lifting, dropping, lifting again. A slow conversation with the breeze. Later, these greens will steep into broths or be cut into ribbons for soup, see in small, kind measures. When the boats return, the fish market wakes. Wooden counters thud, knives flash but never hurry. A fishmonger presses a thumb along a fish's flank, firm, bright, good. He salts a basket of sardines and lines up bream like moon petals. Buyers lean in and choose with the care of picking words. Somewhere a child points at an octopus in a shallow tub. then laughs when it curls a curious arm toward the light, the rice stacks and the storehouse, far inland. Rice moves like a river across the land. Bundled, dried, threshed. It pours into granaries where the air is cool and watches are kept. Bales are stamped, tallied, stored. The storehouse is a careful animal that breathes in autumn and exhales through winter. Portions become tax. Delivered to the Lord's domain, measured wealth tied with straw rope. Portions remain for villages. For weddings. For lean months that test patience and skill at the hearth, in one peat-dark storehouse. A clerk lifts his brush and records numbers that smell faintly of ink and earth. Outside, a farmer runs a hand across a bale's crisp straw, proud and wary at once. He knows the ledger can be stern, but he also knows the cleverness of barley, millet, buckwheat, the companions that make winter pass without complaint. At home, his wife measures grain by feel, palm as true as any scale. She tips a little extra into the wooden cup for New Year's, then hides a smile in the steam, the knife maker's noon, in a lane that curves like a river reed. A blacksmith's charcoal glows with a daylight of its own. He shapes steel the way a farmer shapes furrows, one focus, one breath, one season at a time. A blade is born by alternating patience and heat, hammer, quench, polish, hone, until it sings softly when a thumb crosses its edge. This is the kitchen's quiet sword, destined to turn radish into clouds and fish into rain. The smith wraps the finished knife in oiled paper and hands it across the counter with two hands. The cook who receives it bows as if receiving a story. Later, a single slice will tell of balance and grain and the steadiness of wrists that never hurry a meal. Edo's street noon, steam and smoke, city midday again. And the narrow streets carry a festival of small comforts. From a brazier, sweet potatoes roast in their jackets, the skin peeling back to reveal a sun-colored heart. A soy-simmered Odin pot lists its gentle citizens, daikon rounds shining like full moons. Tofu firm and friendly. Fish cakes puffed and eager. A ladle dips, a customer warms his hands around the bowl and feels the broth rise into his shoulders like kind advice. A buckwheat stall hums. Bowls slide across the counter, the slurp of noodles is not rude but respectful. Hot soup is honored when it is eaten as hot soup. Beside the stall, a cart sells grilled eel lacquered with tear sauce that glows like wet lacquer. People line up, patience smells like charcoal and river. A candy seller clicks his hyoshigi clappers and pulls spun sugar like silk. Children orbit him the way moths orbit lamps. He shapes a tiny crane. A carp, a rabbit, the animals gleam for a heartbeat, then disappear to sweetness. A lesson about seasons without a single word. Kaiseki roots, a tea host's supper. Toward evening, a tea host arranges a meal that grew from the ceremony's heart, kaiseki. The warm stone, the light supper that steadies the body for tea's clear awareness. The table is modest, almost shy, a single tray with just enough to sketch the season. First, a bowl of rice, each grain lit like a pearl. Then a clear soup, steam bending like calligraphy. Inside, a sliver of yuzu peel, a pine needle of flavor, a small plate of sashimi, barely cooled, almost still thinking of the sea. A simmered dish, taro and pumpkin in a broth that tastes like memory. A grilled bite, river fish brushed once with salt and twice with silence. Pickles, faint and bright. Nothing argues, everything converses. Guests sit with knees folded, eyes soft. They do not name the dishes aloud, they let them pass over the tongue and into the mind the way a breeze passes through bamboo, heard, not held. When the last bowl is empty, the table looks like dawn after rain, clean, spare, promising. A carpenter's supper under cypress beams, a house builder returns with sawdust in his sleeves. He washes at the well, the water nipping his wrists like a playful friend. Inside, his wife ladles rice and miso soup that smells faintly of mushrooms. She sets out a plate of salted plums, a few slices of pickled burdock, and greens dressed with sesame paste. A mackerel fillet smokes on the brazier, he lifts it with chopsticks that know their work. He eats like a man measuring joists, no waste. Just right, above them. The cypress beams he set last spring speak in tiny wooden sighs as the night cools. He touches the lintel with the back of his hand the way a gardener touches a leaf. Food has taught him to balance weight and lightness, wood has taught him to listen. After tea, he warms his palms around the teacup and looks at the grain running up the cup's side like a river to its source. A mother's bento and a silk merchant's table, in the morning's pale hush. A mother shapes rice balls with wet hands, pressing umeboshi at the center like sealing a small sun. She wraps the onigiri in a sheet of nori that crackles faintly and sets them in a bamboo box beside a thimble of pickles and a roll of tomagoyaki. Eggs folded like quiet blankets. The lid closes with a wooden kiss, the bento waits for noon to unfold it. Across town at dusk, the silk merchant dines with a guest from another province. The table shows restraint wrapped in care, rice, a miso with tofu trembling like moonlight, slices of simmered lotus whose holes look like little windows, and a plate of simmered beef, a rare indulgence from foreign traders, served in small, apologetic squares. They talk about weaves and rains and whether mulberry leaves will be early or late. Between courses, they incline the sake flask so that neither cup stands empty, neither allows his own to be filled first. Their silk speak rustles against tatami, outside. A bell marks an hour and the city seems to nod. Festivals by lantern, eating under paper moons. Lanterns bloom along the canal. Stalls bloom with them. A festival night tastes like rice flour and charcoal. Sugar and salt. Smoke and laughter. Skewers of chicken hiss, soy drips. Flares. Forgives. A woman turns a griddle cake with a thin wooden pick, the cake puffs and sighs. In a tub. Shaved ice shivers under a splash of syrup colored like sunset. Children walk with cotton candy clouds and paper fish kites that swim the air, beyond the stalls. A shrine's steps hold families resting their feet, sharing rice balls and small gossip. Priests carry a portable shrine that rocks like a boat on shoulders. The crowd responds with a wave of sound that crests, falls, crests again, then settles, like tea foam turning smooth. Later, lanterns set on the river drift away. Slow as goodbyes. People watch until the lights are stars again. Winter pots. Summer bowls, when winter leans close. Households set a pot on the table and let it speak for everyone. Napa cabbage. Tofu. Mushrooms. Thinly sliced fish or boar if fortune smiles, each ingredient awaits its moment and then lowers itself into the simmer. Chopsticks fish out warmth, bowls fill. Empty. Fill again. Conversation becomes steam. Outside. A fox steps across snow like a careful poem. In summer. Meals spread out and lighten. Cold noodles coil in a bowl over rice, a dipping sauce waits in a small cup, soy, mirin, dashi whispering together. Tomato wedges gleam, cucumbers thunk against a board and fall into green pieces that taste like wells. Rice cools in a wooden tub. Fanned by a palm leaf, vinegar and sugar and salt turn it from grain to company. Ready for fish, egg, or pickled root. Fans move air, the room breathes. Market of many hands, by late morning. The open market sways with baskets and voices. A tofu maker cuts blocks that wobble gently and places them on leaves as if laying infants in cradles. A pickle seller lifts a lid and the air turns orchard sour pleasant. She pinches a slice between fingers and offers it to a hesitant boy, who smiles after the second chew. The tea vendor roasts stems in a pan, and the fragrance of hojicha runs along the alley like laughter. A mushroom hunter from the foothills opens a wicker lid and shows peaks of pine-scented treasure. Buyers lean in. Respect quiet as a bow. Coins clink without arguments. Hands weigh. Eyes measure. Heads incline. Everything is small and enough. Courtyard lessons, chopsticks and kindness, in a schoolyard. A teacher sets out tiny bowls and a shallow plate with beans. Children practice with chopsticks cut shorter for their hands. At first, the beans jump like fish, the children giggle and chase. The teacher shows how to rest the lower stick, how to breathe between tries, how to pause before lifting the bowl so the bean feels expected, not hunted. Soon, beans settle into the children's bowls with little tock sounds of triumph. A lesson follows without chalk. Don't point with chopsticks, they are for guiding food, not opinions. Don't pass food from chopstick to chopstick, that belongs to another ceremony. Bowls near your mouth, spills near no one. Thank the rice. Thank the hands. They end with barley tea that tastes like roofs in rain. The children bow to the cups, to the beans, to each other. A sparrow hops on the windowsill and seems to bow too, sake in quiet steps. In a Kura brewery where cedar beams hold histories, steamed rice cools on woven trays, each grain distinct as a star. Koji is sprinkled like a blessing and the warm room hums in a key the chest understands. In another room, a starter wakes like a small village at dawn. Fermentation is a poem with long lines, days, then weeks, punctuated by the brewer's footfalls and the click of a wooden lid. Winter makes the best verses, the cold keeps flavors honest. When the first press runs, the sake foams like pale river water. The brewer fills a cup, sets it on the floor for the house deity, fills another for himself, and sips without comment. He knows when the flavor has the right quiet. Later, bottles will travel wrapped in straw to inns, homes, and castle kitchens. The same calm will pour into other cups, and hands will steady each other's cups before their own. Paper doors, bamboo wind, night again. A single lamp softens a room into honey and shadow. The paper door breathes as someone slides it shut with 2 fingers, gentle as if it were a sleeping cheek. The mats remember the day's feet but forgive their weight. On a tray near the sleeping quilts, a cup of water, a small dish with 3 slices of pickled radish, a comfort shaped like crescents. Outside, bamboo makes it sold. Careful music, the wind reads it aloud. A lullaby rides the corridor, one mother's voice. Then the hush after. Even the kettle on the banked coals seems to listen. The faintest whisper of matsup has aired its spout. In the corner, a tea bowl rests upside down on a cloth, clean and content. In the garden, a stone basin holds the moon until a leaf drops and breaks it into silver, grain and gratitude. Morning follows night the way chopsticks follow a bowl. A household wakes and meals assemble. But each day's thanks are not a habit worn thin, they are fresh as cut radish. Itadakimos opens a door inside the chest, Gokaiza-sama Deshita closes it softly with both hands. In between, bites and sips draw a line through hours that might otherwise scatter, from the seaweed women to the brewer, from the potter to the monk, from the carpenter to the festival cook. Hands meet in the middle of every bowl. Rice carries their work, soup remembers their weather, pickles keep their seasons safe for a later day. If there is luxury here, it is the luxury of enough warmth, enough salt, enough tea, enough time to chew without hurry, drift. So the day folds itself again, boats set out, knives shine, markets murmur, festival lanterns cool, pots simmer, tea settles, doors whisper. Your breath matches the kettle. Your shoulders choose the slope of rest. The mind places its chopsticks on the little rest and watches the bowl one last moment, the bowl that held the moon, the broth, the quiet, and then it, too, bows, sleep steps in, steady as a server with a tray, and sets before you a final course, a wide field of silence, a warm cup of dark, a small dish of moonlight. Eat well, rest well. Tomorrow's rice is already counting itself true.